Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot, and I'm here today to show you the BOSCH Tarot deck by Travis McHenry. Today I'm going to show you a deck interview that I did a couple of weeks ago now with this deck. This was a gift to me for Christmas from my son, and it's a deck that I'd wanted since I saw it on Amazon, you know, before it was released. I had it on order, and then I asked my son if he'd buy it for me for Christmas, which he did. So this has been a deck study for me. If you want to see my first impressions of this video, if you go back a few videos to one that I did of several decks that I got for Christmas, the BOSCH Tarot is included in amongst that lot, so there's a little first impressions sort of flick through of the deck there. Today I want to show you the deck interview that I did with this deck, and then in a week or two, I'm not sure how long to be honest, I will be back and I will do a video on my thoughts and feelings about this deck as a kind of depth study that I've done for the past month. I knew this was a deck that I would never just be able to get out of the box and start to read with, because it's not at all like a traditional tarot deck, really. It has all the major arcana, but they're called different names. It has 4 or 5 different people for each of the court cards, and they're all quite different. And it has no minor arcana. It instead has sins. It has the 7 deadly sins. So I'm not sure how many cards are in this deck. I don't think it says. This deck is by Rockpool, and as I said, it's by Travis McHenry. It came out last year. The copyright was 2022. I'll just read you a little bit from the introduction here. So it says, there are few artists whose work has sustained its power to shock, amaze and delight audiences for more than 500 years. But anyone who views the garden of earthly delights will experience all these emotions at once. This esoteric symbology runs rampant through Bosch's paintings, even those he did not craft with an explicitly religious or philosophical theme. While his paintings were just as unusual in his day as they are to modern viewers, Bosch's contemporaries understood the symbolic meaning behind his strange visions. So in 2017, I came up with the idea of creating a deck of tarot cards using images from Bosch's paintings. There's plenty of chaos in our daily existence, but if we can slow down and look closely, we're often surprised by the beauty we find. So when Bosch lived and worked, the original tarot game enjoyed great popularity through Europe, and some of the familiar images on modern decks are virtually identical to Bosch's work. So the guiding philosophy I used to create this deck was, what if Hieronymus Bosch had been commissioned to create the first tarot deck? What symbols might he use as suits for the minor arcana? What figures might he consider as trump cards in the major arcana? The tarot began, after all, as a game, and only later was it used as a tool for divination. So, he says, scholars of both art and the occult may question my choices and hopefully discover even deeper esoteric meanings than I have revealed. What else we got? Have a large freedom of sword. Reading the tarot is an intensely personal art. The meanings and definitions I've provided here are only one person's interpretation. When Bosch painted, he knew exactly what his paintings meant, but he was also aware that his audiences might derive new and wonderful interpretations. and such is the nature of all art. Okay, so as I said, we've got the major arcana, we have in the minor arcana, we've got, I think we've got the suit of berries, the suit of birds, the suit of skates, the suit of swords, the suit of vessels, the suit of books, the suit of coins, and then the 7 deadly sins, of which we all know the gluttony, greed, etc., etc. And as I said, there are no minor arcana cards here at all. We have a page, a knight, a baron, a prince, a queen, a king, and an ace in each of those suits, plus the major arcana, plus the 7 deadly sins, and that's what makes up the deck. So I thought I'd just let you know that, because it is quite a complicated deck. I'm not going to tell you my thoughts and feelings too much about this deck in this video, because as I said, in a week or two I want to come back and give my final thoughts really about this deck from my deck study with it. I've been journaling with this deck pretty much every day, and sort of really trying to get to know it better and see how it might work for me. So I shall come back to that. Today is just the deck interview that I conducted with this deck, and I don't do this with all my decks, just ones that I feel I might be struggling to get to know, or something that might be a bit different or unique, something that just needs a little bit more time really. So I'll just put those over there. So these are the cards. There's only 6 cards in this deck study today, and the first card is describe yourself. So I asked the deck, describe yourself please, and I pulled the Christ Child, which is card number 19 of the major arcana. And from what I've read, this card is similar to the Sun card. So the keywords, I don't know whether you can see those on there, are birth, children, learning, and new beginnings. So as you can see, the artwork on these cards is very weird. Some of it is quite difficult to look at. It's definitely a deck of its time, of that artwork of its time. Yeah, so in this picture, I think this is showing the Christ child, that's who I assume is this child here, having to learn to walk as a mere mortal baby. This is sort of paving the way and setting the stage for his struggles, bearing the cross later on in life, is what I read from the book about this. So the child has the potential for greatness, but has to master the basics first. So as you can see, even though this is similar to the Sun card, and the Sun might well represent Christ, as far as I'm aware, really, there's not a great deal else that makes me think of the Sun here, I suppose. Something I have discovered about this deck is, although it can make me smile and chuckle sometimes, this deck is not a warm deck. It's not a sunny deck. It's not a deck that you'd pick up on days where you felt miserable or sad, I don't think. So if this is describe yourself, please, and this is the Christ child learning to walk, to master the basics, that perhaps that's what this deck is about. I've sort of struggled really to sort of understand what this card might mean. I mean, it is new beginnings, learning. So perhaps this deck is describing itself as a completely new deck, one that requires the viewer, the querent, the reader to set aside their sort of established thoughts and feelings about tarot and be open-minded to something completely new, something that has the potential to be great, but is completely new and needs a very different approach, I would say. So we'll leave that one there. So the next card is, what is your strength as a deck? And we've got the Page of Vessels here. You can see that. So the key words on this card are promotion, hard work, dedication, loyalty, and career. And I think in this picture here, we can see, and that actually this card, the Vessels suit, relates to cups and water. So this suit might relate more to emotions, perhaps. So, which is odd, isn't it, when we've got promotion, hard work, dedication, loyalty and career, because you might think that's more pentacles, wouldn't you? But in the book it says Vessels is water and cups. So this man is trying to climb the ladder, even with an arrow in his bum. You can see that there. He's nearly there despite the challenges. He's obviously trying to escape something and climb up into I don't know, a ship, a spaceship, I don't know, who the hell knows? It could be anything with this deck, couldn't it? So he's nearly there despite his challenges. So I was thinking about what that might mean as a strength for this deck, and I thought, well, perhaps this deck will encourage me to keep going also in the face of adversity. Because that's really what's going on here, I suppose, isn't it? Is that this poor man, who, I don't know why he has to have a bare bum, but he has, and someone shot an arrow into it. So I would imagine climbing up the ladder is quite unpleasant. And but he keeps going. He hasn't stopped. He's trying to climb the ladder, isn't he, of perhaps of his career, to trying to get a promotion. He's showing his dedication to the cause. And perhaps that is the strength of this deck, really, is that even in the face of adversity, this deck might encourage me to keep going. So the third card we've got here is, the question is, what is your weakness as a deck? And this is the King of Skates. This is quite a funny card, actually, really, I think. In the book, it says that skates represent water and metal. Water, that is the ice that we can see here, and metal, which are the skates. And it said that the darkest imagery from all of the Earthly Delights paintings can be found in the skates suit, as they represent some of the imagery from the Hell panel on Bosch's paintings. And that often Hell was represented at that time by showing ice as well as fire. So that's why we've got the ice and the skates. And I think if we look at this king here, he's so focused on what he's doing and on making sure that he's got everything that he needs and that he wants, that he's totally forgot about this person down here that has fallen in the ice. So the key words on this are lack of help, distractions, and self-centeredness. So I don't know, maybe the creator has created such an overly complicated deck that he didn't think of the user so much. I don't know. Is that a weakness? And that might mirror the king here, who didn't consider his friend under the ice. He's so concerned about getting everything right for himself. You know, he's got, what's he got? He's got all of his things on his ship there, hasn't he? He's got everything that he needs, but he has completely ignored or walked over this poor person under the ice here. So as a weakness for the deck, as I said, I'm struggling really to think what this might mean, other than the fact that to me this is an overly complicated deck, and I think that that is its weakness. It's I don't want to say that the man who created this deck was self-centered, but he has created a deck that will take time, you know, that that is a deck of its own kind. I don't know whether I'm explaining this very well, really. Yeah, it's almost like this deck is a deck that somebody has created for themselves and their own pleasure and their own amusement, but perhaps they haven't thought quite so much about the people that are going to be using it. I don't know, because it is a very difficult deck to work with. So the next question, question number 4, is describe me. This is who do you think I am? I asked the deck. Who do you think I am? And I pulled the deception card, which is troubling. This is card number 7. The keywords on here are lies, deceit, hidden truths, and secrets. And this is a very troubling card here. I mean, we see this woman who looks like she's asleep, and there's this sort of black demon creature that is feeling her up while she's asleep and kind of vulnerable. There's this other sort of creature that looks like it's behind, is looking at her, and there's a face in it. I don't know. That's just really weird, isn't it? I mean, BOSCH's artwork to look at on a wall is fascinating, but I'm just not sure how well it is relating to tarot cards. It's bizarre. So, as I said, this question was describe me. Who do you think that I am? And there's kind of overtly sexual themes here, aren't they? This sleeping, vulnerable woman's being taken advantage of by these creatures. So I suppose, really, there are issues here relating to trust, aren't there? About letting your guard down, about fear of consequences, and even kind of internal deceptions, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know whether this card relates to another card in the tarot deck. Let's have a look. Number 7. A naked... I'll read what this says. A naked woman sleeps, strange creatures fall upon her and begin to claim her as their own. Letting your guard down or trusting the wrong person can have terrible consequences. The deception card does not conclusively mean that someone is lying to you. In many cases, it can indicate an internal deception, such as keeping something from yourself or compelling yourself to believe that something isn't true. Much here is hidden. So, I'm going to take this, as this deck is describing me, I'm going to take this as perhaps this is about my fears about being taken advantage of or trusting the wrong person, letting my guard down with people, being vulnerable. These are all issues actually that I do struggle with quite a great deal in life. And yeah, trust and vulnerability are big issues for me. So perhaps that's what it's referring to, is that Perhaps it's encouraging me to ask a question such as, what do I believe about myself that isn't true? What do you think? Yeah, maybe. So the next question, question number 5. We've got 2 more questions left. So question number 5 is the flower pusher. Flower pusher. So that's what we've got here. So we've got somebody bent over and somebody quite coolly and calmly inserting a bunch of flowers into their bum. So I think when I look, this card aligns itself with either justice or strength. This card, and the keywords on the card are force, justice and strength. And the question for this card is, what can you teach me and how can I best collaborate with you? So when I looked in the book to see what this card is about, because who the hell knows, this card, it said, no one likes justice being enforced on them. No one really likes an all-powerful system forcing us to accept unpleasant or uncomfortable things. So maybe this card is suggesting that I may have to accept difficult but honest messages from this deck. Maybe that's the teaching from this deck, is that not everything that I hear will be pleasant, but it will be honest, perhaps. There is some brutal honesty, I think, with this deck. It doesn't beat around the bush. Yeah. So no one likes justice being enforced upon them. Certainly not the poor man bent over with the flowers being pushed into his bum. Yeah. What can you teach me and how can I best learn to collaborate with you? I think really just to be accepting of the messages in this deck. To just accept that it's a difficult deck, that it's not a deck that sugarcoats, that it's honest and direct, but kind of brutal. And then the last question I've got here is, what is the potential of our relationship? Will it endure? And I've got card number 10 here from the Major Arcana, which is the Table of Plenty. And I think this aligns itself with the Wheel of Fortune card in traditional tarot. And the keywords on here are success, food, rewards, and capitalism. There's all sorts of things going on this card, isn't there? We've got somebody blowing some kind of trumpet. There is some food on the table, but nobody seems to be eating it. People are under the table. There's a sort of demon creature that seems to have stabbed somebody in the head down here, perhaps. There's another sort of demon creature over here. Let's just read what the book says about this. I mean, how do I interpret this? Wheel of Fortune grounded in our material lives, the sort of reality of everyday life. Let's read from the book. Table of Plenty. So, a table with food and drink is surrounded by revelry and strange creatures. The table is held up by 2 people. One is a naked man using a crutch. One is bandaged while the other rests inside a vessel, but his face is contented. Yeah, I guess so. We have got these things up here, haven't we? This symbolises common wage earners who struggle in labour while drowning their sorrows in drink. The other man supporting the table holds a sword and iron gauntlet, but creatures are attacking him in the darkness. This man represents the military and police forces that, despite having firepower, are answerable to civilian politicians who take their pleasure at the table of plenty. So these images of capitalist exploitation aren't meant to be fatalistic, because if we look closely at the table, a black creature is peeking over the edge, ready to grab a morsel for itself. In the centre, a small frog. This is insane, isn't it? In the centre, a small frog has already made itself at home, unnoticed by anyone. And in a nearby lake, creatures approach the shore. Really? Yeah, I suppose they do, don't they? Rich, developed countries are made stronger and more prosperous by accepting outsiders who may contribute to either the top or the bottom of the table. So the Table of Plenty replaces the traditional Wheel of Fortune card with imagery that is grounded in the reality of our everyday lives and less dependent on the whims of a mystical entity. Blimey. See, to me, it's all a bit much, really, for me to get my head around. If any of you have any insights into this deck, I would love to hear. So I think, how do I interpret this Table of Plenty with a question, what is the potential of our relationship? Will it endure? Well, I think all that I have to say to that actually is that I think this deck may well come and go from my practice. I think that if I'm looking for an honest and grounded answer, if I'm looking for a brutally honest answer to a question, I think this deck could well be helpful using the book. I don't think I will ever be able to read this deck just as a tarot deck. I don't think, for me, it's set up that way. It might become a good oracle deck, or it might become a shadow work deck for myself. You know, there are always times in life where we're struggling to face up to the reality of a certain situation, and I think this deck could certainly help you to do that. I'm not sure if I like this deck or not. I'm not sure if this deck likes me, but I've got maybe a week left of my depth study with it, and I'll come back and I'll do another video and I'll give you my sort of thoughts and feelings about the deck. I'll maybe pair it with some other decks if I can, because I'm not sure what I can pair this deck with other tarot or oracle decks. And I'll maybe show you a couple of my own journal readings with this deck and how that went for me. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I don't have a lot of answers really to the questions that I've asked. This is a strange deck. It's the strangest deck that I own. Like I said, some of the imagery here I could quite happily have on my walls in places. I don't think any of these particularly. None of these images are very nice, but some of the images I could quite happily look at and sort of ponder upon and enjoy looking at. But as a tarot deck and in the format that this deck has been made, I'm not sure. As I said, what was it, what was the card that described me? It was deception, wasn't it? This was what the deck thought of me. So in that, you know, I think just in that, actually, I have gotten something out of this deck, because this card really is about issues of trust and internal deceptions, you know, the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you perceive yourself, and the way that you perceive other people's behaviour, I suppose. So yeah, if I've been left with one positive or one helpful thing from doing this deck interview, it would be that. You know, that's pretty good. So anyway, I think I've waffled on more than enough. Please do leave me your thoughts in the comments section. I would love to know what you think about this deck, whether you find it just as confusing and mad as I do, whether you own this deck, whether you've been thinking about getting this deck. And like I said, if you want to look at my first impressions, where I think I did go through every card, if you look back at the video of my Christmas gifts, the decks that I got for Christmas a couple of weeks ago, I'll link it if I remember in the description box. And as I said, in a week or two I will be back with the results of my month's depth study with this deck, which should be interesting, I would hope. But anyway, I hope that you're all well. I hope that you enjoyed watching that and hearing me ramble and be confused. And I shall see you again soon. Thank you.